Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello, and thank you for downloading The Bolder Woman here on Wisp Sports. This is Season 2, Episode 6, and I'm Chris Stafford. And you can join in the conversation with us at any time by following us on social media at Wisp Sports. And that will help us to turn up the volume on women's sports.
Give it all you got, no hesitating. You've been waiting all your life.
My guest this week is British triathlon and open water coach Penny Harris, who's a firm believer that the sport is so adaptable that anyone can compete in triathlon at any age because it's not always about the result. She's always enjoyed biking and running, and as we often hear, it was the swimming that challenged her. Now in her mid-50s, she specialises in coaching open water swimming and helping athletes overcome their fear. All of this while pursuing her own goals in the sport. And she says her high points so far have been getting to the start of her first sprint triathlon. In 2012, at the 5x50 European Championships, she pushed herself harder than ever before to finish runner-up. In the same year, she travelled to Lanzarote for her first ever Ironman 70.3 and finished fourth in her age group. In 2013, she came third in her age group in the Cotswold 113 race, and a year later, at the age of 50, Penny competed in her first long-distance triathlon at Challenge Roth in Germany. And as we'll hear, Penny is now training for an Ironman competition in 2020. And in her spare time, she's a volunteer on the local Lifeboat near her home in South Wales. Before we go any further, the comment that you just made just now is that your pager, your Lifeboat pager, is turned off. So everybody will know that you are a Lifeboat volunteer. So big round of applause for that. Well done, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a permanent companion, I'm afraid, my Lifeboat pager. So you are very honoured that it's turned off.
I feel very honoured, and so should our listeners be privileged to be a part of this conversation, because we're not going to be talking much about Lifeboat volunteering. We're going to be talking about triathlon, but it all involves water. So clearly you are very comfortable in open water.
Yes, I've always been a bit of a water baby, and now I live a 4-minute walk from my nearest beach. So even though it's winter here, the water's down to about just over 10 degrees. I'm still going in a swimming costume quite happily, sometimes on my own, sometimes with a group of other friends. So it's fab, and I love it.
And here, we should explain, is in the lovely part of South Wales, which is very dear to my heart. Pembrokeshire, you're, as you say, right on the coast there.
Yeah.
A lovely part of Wales. What drew you to that area to do what you're doing in the sport of triathlon?
We had sold our house in the Midlands and were looking for a plot of land in the Midlands to build a house. And we came down to Pembrokeshire for a week to take part in an event called the Long Course Weekend. And it's basically an Ironman and middle distance Ironman split over 3 days. So you swim Friday evening, you do the bike ride on the Saturday and the run on the Sunday. So we did that, and I'd booked an apartment for the week, and we were travelling round because I know the area well because we always came on holiday here as children. And my husband turned around and said, I want to live in Pembrokeshire. And I was never going to say no to that one. So we moved to Pembrokeshire, and it's the best thing ever and a wonderful place to live.
Yeah, I do envy you. Now, I mentioned how comfortable you are with the sea because you do actually train athletes to swim in that open water, because it takes a bit of courage if you're not used to that environment, doesn't it?
It does, and there's all the things that you can't see under the water, or sometimes that you can see under the water. So you've got the seaweed, you've got various types of jellyfish, fish, crabs, anything. And it's always that thing of something touches your feet and you're not quite sure what it is. And of course, you've got waves, you've got current, you haven't got nice black lines to follow. And people can be very confident in the pool, but as soon as they get in the sea, the panic sets in. Their nice stroke they've got really tied up in the pool doesn't work. The way they breathe in the pool doesn't work. And because where I live, there's a very gently sloping sandy bay that's protected in most wind directions. It's a brilliant place to safely get somebody comfortable swimming in the sea. So I'll normally start standing behind them so they don't even get any waves near their face. And you can build up to get them to swim widths of the bay, and then you eventually get them swimming through a cutout in some rocks into a little hidden harbour and back. And the difference you can make in 1 hour is unbelievable. So I take a video at the start and a video at the end to show them the difference in their swimming and how relaxed they are just after 1 hour. And I just love it. I just love getting that instant visual feedback from how well somebody's doing.
Well, it's not like you're close to the equator. This is cold water swimming, isn't it?
Oh, it gets to 16 degrees centigrade in the summer. That's quite warm. I think the coldest it got last winter was just under 5 degrees centigrade.
Okay, all right. That's still cold in Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's quite cold. That's when you've been in for 5-10 minutes and you feel as if your feet have suddenly grown cushioned underneath and you can't feel them. But it's still fun.
Okay, I'm taking your word for this. Clearly, it's something that you're passionate about and making your way as a coach in the sport of triathlon. But I want to talk about that in just a moment. But first, let's just look back in the rearview mirror at your career and how you got into the sport, because it sounds like you were another child that just jumped on a bike and always enjoyed riding a bike. I can relate to that. The bike was a good friend when we were children.
Yeah. My parents, before they had children, cycle toured all around the country. And I'm the youngest of 4 daughters. All my older sisters had bikes. My first bike I got, I think it was my 6th birthday, and it was a second-hand one, and I loved it. And at that age, my friend and I would just disappear all day out on our bicycles. No mobile phones in those days, obviously, because I'm ancient. And you'd just disappear with a picnic, come back home at the end of the day, and it was wonderful. So I've always had a bicycle in my life. You know, it's not been competitive cycling most of the time, but I've always been riding a bike, and I can't imagine not knowing how to ride a bike.
When did you turn that into being competitive with a bike then, Penny?
In my 40s, actually. I decided, my older sister's 9 years older than me, so halfway between my 40th and her 50th, we both decided to train for a marathon in Dublin. And I got so bored just training to run. So after the marathon, I looked for something different, and I found triathlon. And after a couple of false starts, I discovered something that I loved doing. The training wasn't boring. You could switch it around so you weren't always running. And it's almost like the best form of cross-training. And at the end of it, you can enter an event. And it's probably the first time in my life I actually started to feel a bit competitive about sport. So my best result was second in my age group in an Olympic distance European Championship. And I've had quite a few thirds at that are sort of half Ironman or middle distance triathlons and 4ths in my age group. And it's addictive, to be honest. And I love moving anyway. I used to climb and go mountaineering. So I've always been a person that moves. I'm an adrenaline junkie, I think.
Yeah, so obviously an outdoor sportswoman too. This is not a badminton court indoors. You're always out there in the fresh air, tackling the elements as well. Then how did that lead from the marathon running and the biking? How did you put all of that together to triathlon? Because I often hear when athletes come into triathlon, come into the sport, that they've got the biking down and the running's okay, that's easy, but the challenge is often the swimming.
Yeah. The big thing with swimming is, one, it's an alien environment. You can't breathe whenever you want to, because obviously you just inhale a load of water. And you have to work so hard to get the technique so you can work with the resistance of the water rather than trying to fight the resistance of the water. And the big thing I say to people, which often catches them out, is relax, because it's so easy in water, because you're struggling to breathe, you want to take a breath, but you haven't quite turned your head enough and you start choking. It's just stopping, relaxing. And it's very, very technical. So you have to work on body position, how you're rotating your body, what you're doing with your arms, what you're doing with your head when you go to take a breath. And if you've not done it from when you're young, it is a lot to try and put together.
What help did you get? Did you get a coach right away when you decided to take on triathlon as a sport? You know, having done the running, you now wanted to take triathlon on and be competitive at it.
The first couple of events, I used a book that had a plan in it. It had a training plan. It had strength and conditioning plans, because that's so important as well. And after a couple, I had a chat with my husband, and he agreed that to see what I could do, find a coach. So I spoke to several different people. I spoke to different coaches until I spoke to one that I felt I could work with. Because the thing about coaching is you're not just coaching somebody to do the sport. You're actually a bit of a life coach, because you've got to look at lifestyle, nutrition, family, and you become a shoulder to lean on as well. So it's finding somebody that I clicked with when I spoke to them, and they'd got the qualifications, so I knew that they were actually trained to be a coach, and they knew what they were doing, and they trained several other people, and it was great. And that's why I got so much better. I got a lot faster, and that's when it probably planted the seed with me that it would be quite nice to start giving something back and have a look at coaching myself.
What was the motivation, though, to be competitive?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I suppose at that time in my life, I had a very competitive job. I sold capital medical equipment into hospitals, so I worked a lot with tenders. And so I suppose my whole work life was competitive. And then going into a sport in my spare time that was also competitive, it was almost like letting off that valve, and it gave me a focus. Because if you're just going out and doing something, if you haven't got a focus of some sort that's going to push you and drive you, it's very hard to keep that internal motivation to keep going. I mean, yes, I reached a point where I stopped feeling so competitive, but it was great because I had that period of years of showing myself what I could do. You know, I was in my 40s, which is an age as a woman where you start completely reevaluating your life and your lifestyle and where you are and what your meanings are, what your drivers are in life. And that's basically how it worked for me, and where that drive initially came from.
Now, what about the distance? I know you've done half marathon. What about the full marathons, and how did you distinguish which one was going to be your forte, if you like?
Are you talking about sort of the triathlons and the sort of the half Ironman and Ironman and the different distances?
Yes.
As you get older, you get much better endurance rather than going quickly. Even at school, I was never a sprinter. I was always in the cross-country team. And for me, it was... I tried the different distances, but I felt most comfortable and I enjoyed more the half Ironman and the full Ironman distance rather than the shorter, faster ones, which actually they're a lot more painful than the longer ones, which people don't believe. But the shorter ones are more painful than the longer endurance sports. And genetically, I am driven towards endurance sport rather than the fast stuff.
Hi, I'm the lovely Beatrix, and every month I have an exclusive interview with someone from the world of roller derby. Join me for a peek inside the sport here on Wisp Sports, wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to follow me on social media. I'm at the lovely Beatrix.
I understand that one of your career highlights is getting to the start of the first sprint triathlon.
Yeah.
Put that in context then of how your career evolved in the sport.
I wanted to try triathlon, but I was very nervous of trying triathlon. I didn't know anybody else at the time who did triathlon. And so I did the classic of entering an event, but I was too scared to actually get to the start line. So for me, it was, oops, I've wasted that money. I've done this training, but I totally backed off from getting to the start line. And it was a case of sitting down, having a good talk with myself and going, right, don't be so stupid. You're very successful in your career. Why on earth can't you go and do this sport? So I just turned up at the start line of the next time. My son was also taking part in it. And I, rather than just going for a small local one, I went to a big event down in London as well, which to some extent was quite nice because I was anonymous. It's not as if I did a local one where somebody might know me. I was totally anonymous, so I could make a complete fool of myself and come dead last if I wanted to. Nobody would know me. And just from actually doing that first race, I realised this was something I wanted to do. And so I did a couple of years at the sprint distance, and then the curiosity was, oh, I wonder how I do on Olympic distance. So I did a couple of years of that, and so on and so forth over all the different distances, which is something I try and get people to do if I am coaching them, is rather than go straight to an Ironman, it's working through the distances, because you get to understand how it works, how your body feels transitioning from being flat on your front swimming to suddenly being upright trying to balance on a bike to suddenly trying to run rather than pedal. And it teaches you a lot of discipline and a lot about triathlon and how to work your way through. And it helps you build up that endurance as you go, because even a sprint triathlon is classified as an endurance event because, you know, for most of us, you're looking at over an hour, and that does classify as an endurance event.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, have you had any help then whilst you were competing, Penny? Did you have a coach eventually?
Yes, I did. I worked for several years with a great guy, actually, he lives in Germany now. It was nothing that I said or did, because he coaches out in Germany now. So I worked with him for quite a few years, from when I did probably from just before I did my second sprint up through until just before I did my first Ironman.
And how did that first Ironman go? How did your body respond to that?
It was my 50th birthday present to myself, and I chose one in Bavaria, a wonderful event, and it was 36 degrees, and I'd come from the Midlands of England, where you're lucky if it hits sort of 80 on a good day for one day. But yeah, it was boiling hot, and I absolutely loved it because I paced myself. I'd got a race plan in my head, and I stuck to my race plan, which was get the swim done, do the bike without getting any punctures or falling off. And for the run, it was to run and power walk at set intervals. Worked like a dream, and I loved every second of it.
Where did you finish?
I have no idea what my finishing position was, but I did it in 14 hours and 44 minutes.
Well, good for you. Now, what since then? I know, because that was a few years ago. Now, what have you been doing since then?
Just before I did the Ironman, we'd moved several hundred miles to somewhere I didn't know, and I didn't know anybody. But I got involved with helping out with a children's triathlon club while I was up there. So I spent a few years working through my national governing body coaching qualifications, and they're very tightly structured, and you have to do weekend courses, and you have to be seen and assessed. You have to do lots of planning and fill out this massive portfolio that all gets marked by the tutors, and it means that it restricts what levels you can coach at. So the first qualification, you can be an assistant coach, basically. The second one, you can coach groups but not one-to-one. The third one, you can coach people one-to-one, and you're fully insured. You've got indemnity insurance. So I actually did that. So I dropped off a lot of my training. I did the odd bit, but I didn't enter events. I just coached and volunteered and helped out. And I loved it. And I think mentally I needed that break from competing anyway. So year before last, we moved back down south from where we'd been, and I started just playing around with entering a few events again. But because I'm staying long, I've been doing middle distances, the long course weekend again, which is the bike Friday. No, it's not. It's the swim Friday, bike Saturday, run Sunday. I've been doing that because that's a massive training weekend ready for the longer distance stuff. And I've been doing cycle sportives and single swim events and things like that, and mixing up a lot more. And just working with the people that I'm coaching and supporting them to get towards their goals as happily and as best as they can without breaking or getting overstressed or getting ill.
Tell me what your plans are now competitively. What are the goals?
Oh, goodness me. I've got a fun event coming up, actually, which is our favourite one, and it's a sort of 10-kilometre run in the dark, in the mud, in December, which is great fun. As an adult, to get absolutely covered in mud, top to bottom, great fun. Next year, I've got a February swim in a lake up in some mountains in North Wales. I'm doing off-road trail runs because trail running is brilliant for building strength. It's much better than the road. The surfaces are uneven, so your body has to work more. So I do a lot of those. And I'm my first ever relay, actually. I'm being the runner at a half Ironman, which will be good fun because I've never done a relay before. And I'm doing long course weekend again, and then Ironman Wales in September. Then I'm going on holiday.
Ironman Wales in September of 2020.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. Okay, so next year is well planned out. And you mentioned the coaching a few times because obviously this is something that you're passionate about, enjoy giving back to the sport by helping others. How did you get into that then? I mean, and obviously you needed to get qualified to do that, but what was the incentive? I'm always curious as to how people are incentivized and what that looks like now for you. How much of that of life does it take up now with being in full-time training?
I started purely with helping out in a children's triathlon club, which then ended up becoming the head coach of a children's triathlon club. But I'd also coach the adults because their training sessions were at different times. And if the head coach wasn't available, I'd step in and I'd coach the adults as well. And for me, I love that feedback of watching somebody. Take, for example, the swimming pool. You're watching somebody and you can see what needs to change very quickly. And I am the sort of coach who I am lying on the side of the pool, absolutely soaking wet because I'm lying in all the splash that comes over the edge of the pool to really show somebody exactly what position their head or their arms or legs or body need to be in. And it's seeing somebody get that real light bulb moment where it clicks and they just look at you and go, why didn't I get that before? And for me, that was always one of my big incentives. And it still is, even though now I coach quite a few people at a distance, it's working with people who, a lot of them, they've got busy lives. They want to do triathlon. They're not even interested in podiuming, a lot of them, but they want to be able to do this sport, but they don't know how to fit in a busy life and their sport and their families, work, and how to get that progression so that they don't just end up overtrained and crashing and burning halfway through the season. And for me, that is great. I work with a lot of people who've got some quite interesting medical conditions or are coming back from injuries. And it's just that, it's nurturing almost. I was a nurse many years ago, so I don't know if that's got anything to do with it. It's a lot of nurturing people. And I'm always getting WhatsApp messages and messenger messages all sorts of times of day and night going, I don't know what to do, help, this has happened. And you just end up being that calming influence, but also getting them through the training and the season. So at the end of the season, they go, wow, look what I've just done. And for me, it's that, wow, look what I've just done moment that I really, really enjoy with somebody at the end of their season.
And these would be age groupers. Anyone who's listening who's familiar with the sport will know that you can participate in triathlon right through the ages, can't you? So give us a sense of the women and the age groups that they're in, right, that you're coaching right now, Penny.
The women I'm coaching at the moment range from 30s up to 50s. And if you want to be an age, although I'm not coaching any of that age, there are age groupers in their 80s now, which I think is absolutely wonderful. And that's what I intend to be, an age grouper in her 80s. And there's no reason at any age to not be able to do triathlon. It's a very inclusive sport. It's very good for people that have got physical disabilities and challenges. Triathlon is a great sport at helping people. The adaptations you can get for the cycling are just wonderful.
What do you mean by that? Unpack that for us.
I will not even begin to explain the different categories that we have. But I've been on training days with children that have got educational challenges, and they've been able to use tricycles. So you've got people on tricycles, you've got people on the tandems. I couldn't think of the word then. People on all sorts of adapted bikes, so that they can still take part in the sport. And in the swimming, people can have assistance with getting in and out of the water. You can have people that are visually impaired. You have swimmers that are actually tied together with a long leash. And the same with the running, they can be tied together with a long leash, and people can use wheelchairs for the run leg. And there are very, very few conditions where you cannot take part in triathlon. And that's another thing I love. It's so inclusive, really, really inclusive.
So what's a typical day for you now, if there is such a thing?
You hit it on the head there. There is not a typical day. Some days I'm writing people's training plans. I'm reviewing what people have done and sending them messages going, that was brilliant, or why didn't you do that? Or the training session said a really low heart rate. Why have you gone and run until your heart rate's at its maximum? That's not how it works. Answering people's questions, answering inquiries from people, and going out and doing training myself as well, because it's really good to keep my brain going, for me to just do a couple of hours in the house, go out. It's like this morning I was running on the cliff tops in the wind and the rain, and it was amazing, and I felt so awake. But you really don't know. Somebody can phone me up or message me and go, can we have a conversation about doing some coaching, or I don't understand the session tomorrow, or I'm not going to fit it in, the world has imploded, my child is ill. And it's just rearranging people's training plans for them. And obviously I'm doing professional development all the time. So I'm always reading and researching and talking to other coaches, so that you're always learning. As a coach, you never, ever stop learning. And anybody who says, I've got my coaching qualifications and puts their feet up, is never going to develop into a really good coach.
Yeah, they're standing still, but obviously that takes up quite a bit of time too. And then you're training as well. How many days of the week do you train? 6 normally, once or twice a day. And then, as we said at the start, you've got your volunteering Lifeboat job. Now, what inspired you to do that? Because again, as we said at the start, you're on a pager 24/7, so you never know when you're going to get called, and you could be called for quite a time, and that would take you away, not just from your training, but also from coaching your clients.
Yeah, you can put yourself as unavailable if you know you've got something coming up. It's actually quite hard to make yourself unavailable. But say if the pager had gone off an hour before we were due to talk, I could have gone and just to help launch the boat rather than going out on the boat, because then I'd have been home well in time to still talk to you. I have actually sometimes had to send somebody a message saying, I'm really sorry, but I'm on a lifeboat and I can't make it, because you never know what the shout's going to be until you get there. And sometimes you think it's going to be just a couple of hours and it turns into a long one. You know, we could be out for 9 or more hours sometimes on a lifeboat, bouncing around in the water. You just don't know. But I think for me, I got into it because, well, probably because the coxswain of the lifeboat lives next door but one, and I'd never live it down if I didn't. But I open water swim. I'm involved with, lots of my friends open water swim. There are lots of events around here that swim from one part of the coast to another. And it's part of that giving something back. The lifeboats get called out a lot. They always need people to be available. And because I work at home, I'm quite unusual. Our village is remote and they struggle to have crew that are available during the day. And it's great because a lot of the time I'm available during the day when most people actually have had to drive at least 10 miles out of the village to wherever they work. But it's great. It's great fun.
We should give them a shout out. What's the name of the lifeboat crew?
It's Angle Lifeboat Station, and they're a good crowd. Even if I do say so myself.
Well, good for you for doing that. And finally, Penny, for anyone who's listening to this and thinking, oh, well, I can't bike or I can't run or I can't swim. I mean, the whole putting that all together, that might be too much of a challenge. What would you say to them for older women?
Older women are brilliant at learning a new sport from scratch. It's well known that as women, we listen more. When we're being coached and taught, we listen and take it on board and ask questions if we don't understand or we need more help with something. And I love coaching women of my age and older, because they're a group who've, especially these days, you've got the menopause, whether it's natural or surgical, and there's so much more awareness now of the effect it has on women, mentally as well as physically. And I've been through it myself, and it was a bizarre place to be. And the more research comes out, keeping moving, learning something new, and challenging yourself has a massive difference on your well-being physically and psychologically. And I would say to any woman, don't tell yourself you can't do it, because if you really try, you can do it. Yes, you're not going to win medals, but you can do it, and find something that just makes you smile and feel so much better about yourself. And it gives you a chance and a reason for some you time, because we all get pulled in all sorts of different directions with life and families, and at my age, parents that are older, and it gives you that dedicated you time, and you can really find your tribe. There's a great one around here that's open water swimmers, and it's just going in, woolly hats on this time of year, just going in, dipping around and getting out again. And it's so good for you psychologically to get that time for you, and you put it in your calendar and it is your time, and don't let the family tread over it to pull you in the direction of something they want to do that day. And that's what I would recommend to every woman.
Do you have a motto?
It depends, actually. Professionally or personally?
Professionally and personally. Let's hear both of them.
Professionally, it's working with your body and mind, because you've got to work with the two together to be successful with helping somebody with sport. And personally, it's I can do it. I'm stubborn and I can do it.
Wonderful. Great motivation.
And I am growing old disgracefully and intend to carry on doing so.
Good for you. Well, Penny, thank you very much for taking time out to come on the show and share your story with us. And the very, very best of luck with your coaching and, of course, with your goals in the sport next year.
Oh, that's my pleasure. And thank you very much for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Hi, I'm Nicole Drought. I'm an Irish racing driver and a proud WISP ambassador. I support WISP because they help to increase visibility in women's sport. This is quite important because it will help to encourage girls into sport if they have role models to look up to. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Nicole Drought Racing. Thanks for listening and supporting WISP.
And if you'd like to read more about Penny or follow her on social media, jump over to our website at wispsports.com and look for The Bolder Woman under the Listen tab. If you have any comments or questions or would generally like to join in the conversation, then you can do so either on social media by following us at Wisp Sports or by dropping us a line to info@wispsports.com. And whilst you're on the website, do check out some of the other podcasts that we have. There is something for everyone here at Wisp Sports, the only global podcast network for women's sports. Until the next time, thank you for listening and helping us to turn up the volume on women's sports.
This is your moment.